The sick genius trope is very popular in shonen anime and fantasy series. I mean, you know the drill, right? The most talented, powerful guy there is afflicted by a terminal illness, and he only has a couple of months or a couple of years to live. There's no way around it, and if not for that disease, the guy could have been the most powerful being in the verse. Or something like that. I mean, like every trope, it can be done well and it can be done poorly. And it is done 2 times in the Naruto series. First with Kimimaro and second with Itachi. One of those is pretty good. The other one kinda sucks. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this trope and I'm gonna be explaining why. Usually this trope tries to evoke a sense of paradox. How could somebody be so powerful, have such an immense weakness? Something that's completely out of the character's control. It's contradictory in an unfair way, but then again, it is kind of fair because the character was born so powerful that he needs to have some suffering, doesn't he? Characters with contrasting characteristics can be very interesting, and this is a very easy way to do it. It's difficult not to sympathize with somebody with a terminal illness, and usually when somebody has a terminal illness, it will give the person a lot of motivation to do whatever the person needs to do before the illness takes her. We see this both with Itachi and Kimimaro. Kimimaro had to go and get Sasuke before Kimimaro died, and Itachi had to make sure everything was aligned so that Sasuke would return to the Leaf Village as a hero before he died. But there's a big difference as to how the disease is used with Itachi and Kimimaro. And I've seen a lot of people debating, oh, what was Kimimaro's disease? Oh, what was Itachi's disease? It's completely irrelevant what disease it was. If you ask that question to Kishimoto himself, he's gonna say, I don't know, it's just a terminal illness with random symptoms that I give. It's just a plot device. It's not that deep. In other stories, the disease can be more fleshed out than it was in Naruto, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference for Kimimaro and Itachi. The important thing is that they're dying because they're sick, and there's nothing they can do about it. But the way Kishimoto goes about writing those 2 characters is extremely different. Starting with Kimimaro, the disease defines the character completely. When Kimimaro is introduced, he's hooked to 1,000 wires that are pumping medicine and whoever knows what into his body so that he could be alive for a couple more days, but we knew from the introduction, this guy's dying, there's nothing we can do about it. Kabuto makes it very clear that Kimimaro is dead. So Kimimaro's character is defined by him having this disease. And we, the audience, know that from the get-go. Yeah, this guy doesn't have much to live for. He loves Orochimaru. He has to go and get Sasuke because he was supposed to be Orochimaru's vessel and he failed. So his final action in life will be to bring a new vessel to Orochimaru. Kimimara's character is pretty straightforward. He is similar to Haku in that he is a tool used by a more powerful individual. While Haku blindly served Zabuza, Kimimaro blindly serves Orochimaru. And Orochimaru knows that. He knows Kimimaro's loyalty is unwavering, and the guy will do anything for him. So much so that Kimimaro was able to move through sheer willpower, even though Kabuto said it would be impossible for him to do so, and he was able to fight against Rock Lee, Gaara, and Naruto because he wanted to save Sasuke, even though the disease was eating his body from within, just because the loyalty he had to Orochimaru and the desire he had for Orochimaru to succeed overpowered his disease. Because yeah, for Kimimaro, Orochimaru is the only person that matters. He was the person who took him out of his life of misery, that gave him a purpose, even though that purpose was very nefarious. He wanted to use Kimimaro's special talents to become more powerful, killing Kimimaro in the process. And we see, especially during the fight against Gaara, that Kimimaro, yeah, he's completely brainwashed by Orochimaru, and Gaara says it himself. Kimimaro's powers are very cool, let's be real here. Using the bones, taking them out of his own skin. It looks nasty, but it's great to see that type of fighting. Especially paired up against Gaara, the 2 great geniuses using very quirky jutsus, the sand versus the bones. Kimimaro's fights against Rock Lee and Gaara are amazing. I mean, Drunk Lee versus Kimimaro is without a question the funniest fight in the series. And Gaara versus Kimimaro is surprisingly emotional. You find yourself kind of rooting for Kimimaro in a sense because he's dying and he wants to do something worthwhile in his life. But his motives are terrible because he's helping Orochimaru out. And he ultimately dies, but Orochimaru gets what he wanted. He gets Sasuke in the end. If not for Kimimaro, the squad from the Leaf Village would have retrieved Sasuke. They would actually have succeeded without the help of the Sand Village, because when Naruto caught up to Kimimaro and Sasuke left that guard, if Kimimaro wasn't there, for example, and Rock Lee arrived to help Naruto, they would be able to beat Sasuke. So Kimimaro stalling so that Sasuke could leave, even though Naruto was able to pursue him and fight against Sasuke, eventually led to Sasuke getting to Orochimaru, which wouldn't have happened otherwise. And just like Haku, Kimimaro gives his life for his master. But there's a key difference between the two characters. With Haku's death, Zabuza changed after Naruto used his Talk no Jutsu on him. Zabuza finally came into contact with his own humanity after seeing what Haku did for him, realizing that Haku was kinda like a son to him. Orochimaru, on the other hand, pretty much laughed it off when Kimimaro sacrificed himself for him. So yes, they both died as a tool, but Zabuza acknowledged Haku as a person, while Orochimaru never really did so to Kimimaro. Not even close. And that's the true tragedy behind Kimimaro's character. Yes, he respected Orochimaru because he was the person who gave him a purpose, but that was the worst purpose Kimimaro could possibly have. He has a terminal illness that he cannot get cured from, and yet he's doing all those terrible things for Orochimaru, a guy that never cared about him more than, I want you to be my vessel because I wish to possess your KK Genkai. When Kimimaro uses his final attack against Gaara in the Forest of Bones, after Gaara had buried him underneath the sand over 100 meters down, Gaara thought he won, but Kimimaro emerges from the bones, and he was about to kill the guy. But then Kimimaro just dies. Right at the moment where he was about to win the fight, and prove Gaara wrong, because Gaara said Orochimaru had brainwashed him and he was wrong for trusting him. So even in the end, he was still loyal to Orochimaru, which is extremely sad. He never really had a purpose for himself, he was always used. Even in his death, Orochimaru is laughing maniacally at what Kimimaro did for him, because yeah, sure, he's happy, but not because Kimimaro died fulfilled, even though that fulfillment was misguided. He kinda died happy, firmly believing that Orochimaru's wishes were fulfilled. And the same thing can be said for Haku, but Zabuza felt bad about that. Orochimaru didn't. Makes you wonder how powerful Kimimaro could have been if he didn't have that disease, which is exactly the purpose of giving a terminal illness to an extremely talented character. The unfulfilled potential, what could have been, are interesting questions to ask, and everything is even more tragic when you consider his situation with Orochimaru and why he died. So, the trope with Kimimaro was pretty decently used. It's nothing too innovative, because we've seen a character just like Kimimaro in Haku before. We just got a little bit of that terminal illness trope on top of Haku's character, and the end for the character was similar, however the repercussions were different. Haku managed to redeem Zabuza after he died, while Kimimaro didn't. I mean, Orochimaru didn't even care. But this takes us to Itachi Uchiha. Certainly one of the most prominent characters in the series, at least in terms of popularity, and the other genius with a terminal illness in the Naruto series. Now, the way Kishimoto uses the illness in Itachi's character starts off completely different from Kimimaro, because we don't know Itachi has a disease. We only find that out after Itachi is dead. Now, there are a couple of hints here and there. He coughs up some blood in the fight against Sasuke. He doesn't move as fast as he could have been. Zetsu acknowledges that after Sasuke nails him with that shuriken attack, saying that Itachi should have been able to see the shadow shuriken coming at him and Sasuke's plan to disassemble the shuriken midair and dodge that. But he simply wasn't fast enough because his reaction time and everything was nerfed because of that disease, and Zetsu didn't know that at the moment because he would have mentioned it. Still, there were hints, but we just didn't know exactly. Itachi not being able to do so well against the shuriken could have been a side effect of him using Tsukuyomi on Sasuke and failed to do so because using the Mangekyo Sharingan is very taxing. Also, Itachi coughing up blood could have been a side effect of him using his Mangekyo Sharingan powers as well. And we only find out for real that Itachi was dying from a disease after Obito tells Sasuke the entire truth about Itachi. He tells Sasuke that Itachi took all types of medicine to stay alive so that he could fight against Sasuke one last time and fulfill his objectives. First, he needed to die in the fight against Sasuke so that Sasuke can return to the Leaf Village as a hero, the man who killed one of the worst rogue ninjas of all time. Itachi also needed to remove Orochimaru from Sasuke's body with a Totsuka blade and imprint his own Amaterasu on Sasuke's eye so that quote-unquote Madara Uchiha wouldn't be able to approach him and try to taint his vision. Itachi also wanted to deliver information to Sasuke about the Mangekyo and the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan to Sasuke so that if Sasuke ever used Itachi's eyes to awaken the EMS, he would eventually be caught on Kodomatsukami if he fought against Naruto with the EMS, and the Genjutsu would command Sasuke to protect the Leaf Village, which would essentially make Sasuke a good guy. And Itachi pretty much fulfilled all these objectives except for the fact that Obito used Izanagi and didn't die to his Amaterasu when he implanted it on Sasuke. But the thing is, he was dying the entire time from this mysterious disease that makes him cough up blood and all that kind of stuff. And yes, we didn't know most things about Itachi before he died because the entire premise behind the character was for him to be the greatest plot twist in the series. A lot of people debate if that was a retcon or not, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that he did have a disease, at least when he was fighting Sasuke, and him having to take all those pills to keep himself alive to fight against Sasuke is supposed to be a noble sacrifice Itachi was making. He was in absolute pain, especially when he used the Susanoo, but the love for his brother prevailed. The problem with Itachi having a disease here is that it just gives a way out for Sasuke and Itachi simultaneously. Because Itachi is not really killed by Sasuke in the fight. He collapses and dies when the disease finally gets him and he runs out of chakra. Yes, the tap in the forehead is a nice moment when Sasuke is about to get his eyes yanked out by Itachi in the end of the fight. Well, at least he thought he was, and then Itachi just taps his forehead, passing the Amaterasu onto him. But Sasuke doesn't do it himself. And yes, he was definitely trying to kill Itachi during the fight, and he wouldn't have had a problem doing so. However, when he finds out the truth about Itachi, him having dealt the finishing blow on Itachi would have been much, much worse for the character, which is good for the story because we want characters to go through emotional trauma and drama and all those types of things. It also gives Itachi an easy way out. Well, he was going to die anyway, so might as well just get myself killed against Sasuke. It wasn't a very difficult decision for Itachi's character here. Now, yes, of course, he's had to make some very difficult decisions in the past, killing his dad, his mom, and his entire clan, pretending he hates his brother and all that kind of stuff. But making the decision to go and die in the fight against Sasuke is a much more interesting decision if he doesn't have a terminal illness already killing him, because that's a true sacrifice. I mean, Itachi was gonna die anyway, so when he dies in the fight against Sasuke, it's not like, oh no, he sacrificed himself, retroactively speaking, because Sasuke didn't know at the time, but now he knows. No, I mean, Itachi was about to die regardless, and you can say, well, he was in so much pain because he had the disease during the entire fight, and it's crazy how Itachi sustained the battle for so long, but it's definitely not as interesting as Itachi was fine, but he chose to die here because of the plan and because he loves Sasuke. Now, if Itachi was healthy, you could say he would be much more useful alive, doing things for the Leaf Village, for Sasuke, and even for Naruto. So a powerful person like Itachi shouldn't really even try to sacrifice himself, but this could show a character flaw. Itachi could have this messiah complex where Itachi thinks his own death is the most important thing that could happen and he could save Sasuke in the process. Or if you wanted to press Itachi for time, you could give other explanations as to why Itachi was doing that now instead of a terminal illness. It could have been simply because his Mangekyo Sharingan was losing its light and he wouldn't be as useful anymore alive anyways. Or it could have been because Obito was trying to reach out to Sasuke and tempt him. But if Itachi does not have a terminal illness, his decision to die in the fight against Sasuke is much more meaningful, and then when Sasuke finds out about that afterwards, that's a completely different scenario, because then, yeah, Sasuke actually killed him. Not that it makes too much difference for Itachi's perspective, because that's what Itachi meant all along, but for Sasuke's perspective, it's completely different. Imagine if he thrusted a Chidori in the middle of Itachi's chest to finish the fight. That would be very traumatic. After Sasuke learns the truth about Itachi, that is. Now, of course, things are traumatic already with Itachi having killed the entire clan against his own will, and just leaving Sasuke alive, making himself to be the worst person ever born, so that Sasuke could live. You can always make your characters' lives more miserable, and the story will probably benefit from that. The terminal illness for Itachi here is an easy way out, both for Itachi and Sasuke. Imagine if Sasuke had killed a healthy Itachi with his own hands instead of just watching him collapse. Now you could say, yes, of course Sasuke killed Itachi in the original series, because Itachi died after a direct confrontation with Sasuke, but for the character's psyche, it would have been much, much worse if Itachi was healthy when Sasuke did so. If Sasuke knew that had he had the knowledge about Itachi's sacrifice during his fight against Itachi, things would have been completely different. Even if Itachi lost his eyesight, he could have still been saved. If only Sasuke knew the truth. If only Sasuke hadn't killed Itachi. But in the original series, Itachi has a terminal illness, so it doesn't really matter because he was gonna die anyways. So that immense sense of guilt for killing his own brother doesn't really exist. Now, of course, Sasuke still resents the Leaf Village for putting Itachi through everything they did, but giving Itachi this illness is almost like saying, yeah, sure, it was extremely bad, but there was no other option here other than Itachi to die. And thematically speaking, the disease doesn't do anything for Itachi. We knew he was willing to suffer a lot of pain for Sasuke already. It's unlike Kimimaro, where the disease informed everything the character did during his entire run in the series, and the character was built around this concept of the disease. No, Itachi's disease seems like an afterthought. Oh yeah, I don't really want to have Sasuke killing Itachi for real, so I'm just gonna give him a disease so he can collapse next to Sasuke. Watch this other video right here for more cool Naruto content, subscribe if you haven't already, and like the video. It really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching.